Not unlike yourself, I've got a background in advertising and marketing, and a lot of that was on the agency side. And my last agency assignment, was with Hasbro Toys, located in Rhode Island, where I am. And I was on site for 5 years, and then my client hired me. So I went to, the dreaded client side, if you're on the agency side thinking about it. But anyway, I found myself in a world that was unfamiliar. It was a lot of master's degree, MBA grads who would just climb over your quirks to get ahead. And I'm coming from the agency world where I'm thinking about things very differently. So I was there for 7 years, and I worked on brands like Transformers and Jurassic World and ultimately Hasbro Games. And this is where I started to discover where I ended up now. When I was on Hasbro Games, they realized that I was very good with our various audiences, whether it was our buyers at, say, Toy Fair in Hong Kong, or an internal brand summit, let's say, for the Asia Pacific team of Hasbro in Mumbai, or it would be a consumer event like a YouTube, I can't remember, VidCon is the name of it, in LA. That was a consumer event. I was the person they saw when it came to Hasbro Games, and I was the one that conveyed our message. Global sales meeting. 1,000 people would come to Rhode Island. They'd all see me talking about Hasbro Games and introducing our line. So I still was not thrilled, but at least I was going to cool places. And I was let go as part of just a workforce reduction. And to put it in perspective, this is October of 18. I hugged the VP who let me go. I felt like it was just being released from prison in a lot of ways for me. And what it allowed me to do is, instead of, I'm going to get a job back in the agency world or a different brand because I'm not happy, they gave me time to look back on 25 years and figure out how I got to where I just was. And the one commonality, I've done everything across the marketing spectrum, from product development and management to marketing to writing and acting in the commercials. I've had to do everything. But the one commonality was my understanding of an audience. And it wasn't just the audience in front of me. It was how I communicated an idea to an audience. So on the agency side, I could speak client, I could speak production, I could speak creative seamlessly. I wasn't just passing notes back and forth. That's what I looked at back on in 25 years. That's what I took away from it. So what I did was create a business around the idea of helping other businesses talk about themselves to their audience, with the simple understanding that 100% of our businesses are important to us, and what we want to do in business, regardless of what it is important to us. But only about 5% of that matters to our audience. And trying to find that 5% when it's you thinking about everything is really hard to do. So I'll give you a very simple example. Imagine an author like Stephen King writes a book, 400 pages of the next horror novel greatness, top 10 seller, whatever. But now it comes time to write what actually sells the book, the 3 paragraphs on the inside flap, the blurb. And he knows everything. He knows the character, emotions, what they're wearing. He hears music that sets tone when he's writing. How is he going to break it down to 3 paragraphs to get their attention, bring them to what's important, and get them to buy it? The answer is he gives it to somebody else. And they read the book and extract the right 3 paragraphs to drive the sale of that book. That's how it works. Effectively, what I do is help people in business, whether they're investors, buyers, business owners, small businesses that want to grow. I show them how to talk to their audience the right way by creating one message that connects with them clearly and brings them to where you want them to be. And once you have that, think of your website, your LinkedIn profile, and your ability to pitch what you have, whether it's networking or a sales presentation. Those should all be built based on the same one message every single time. And that's what I've turned my focus to, is showing businesses the importance of that, and showing them how to understand that an audience is like a bunch of 5-year-olds on the reading rug at the library. They are ready for you to tell them your story. However, you don't hold the book like this because they're 5. You turn it around so they could see the pictures and stuff. But you have to remember why you turn it around is so that you can show them the cow jumping over the moon on this page. So they go, yeah, yeah. And then you're ready to go to this page. If they don't understand this page and you go to this page, you're lost. If I wrote a book, 14 pages, it's a workbook. I know it's on every single page. If you handed me page 8, I'd know exactly what it means. But if I handed you page 8, you'd need 1 through 7 to understand the meaning. If we think about that in business context, we're always thinking services and benefits, but the audience isn't ready for services and benefits. And if everybody's talking about services and benefits, they all look the same. So first, best, or different, as you mentioned in the lead up, we'll talk about, but first and best are tough to come by, but being different in the eyes of the audience is not hard to do. And that's what I focus on, is showing them how to do that.
Mike, great information out of the gate. I love it, man. And we're going to dive deep into a couple of those areas, but I want to recap a couple of things. So been in the agency world, I went from agency to client and then back to agency. It sounds like you went from agency to client, and you talked about that transition, right? So went over to Hasbro, spent some time there, and realized that you had this deep understanding of the audience. And when you reflected on your career, the time that you had, that was something that you did extremely well, and you wanted to build that out and help other business owners develop that skill. And you talked about a great example there. One was that only 5% of what you want to say matters to an audience. So figuring out what that 5% is, it's really key for any business owner. No matter what it is you're doing, you've got to figure out the 5% that matters to the people you're trying to talk to. And a great illustration using the Stephen King book, as well as talking to 5-year-olds. As a father of a 5-year-old, I completely understood that reference, right? Showing the books and reading to them completely makes sense there. 2 things. One is, and let's start with this one. You mentioned that you were unhappy. And I imagine many people listening are listening because there's something that is not giving them pleasure in their current life, whether that is their financials, whether it's, hey, I want to, make enough money in real estate so I can quit my day job, whatever it is. How did you take that unhappiness, if you will, and channel it to find something that you knew you could truly be passionate about and ultimately be happy?
Well, so there's 2 ways to answer this, but the first one is, it's 25 years or 26 years had elapsed by the time I was let go by Hasbro. And in that time, I had been to different agencies. I'd moved to Rhode Island, another agency, got hired by Hasbro. The other stuff that was going on is I met a girl, I got married, I bought a condo, we had a daughter, we moved and bought a house, we had a son, life happens. And not having the ability to look back necessarily, because you're always in the grind, is, you're always running, is what I had relief from ultimately. But where I started to see the benefit of it was, I'm going to use Hasbro as the ecosystem for this. I was on the brand marketing, the global brand team for Hasbro Games. Where I wanted to go within Hasbro even was to events, because then they would be using me 100% of the time for what I know how to do, is create an engagement and literally communicate with the audience at that engagement that they remember and get to where we want them to. So even in terms of, I was still blinded by everything going on, but I started to probe at that point, like, wait, people pay attention to me and I convey the right message and sales go up. That's a good combination. Where could I do that more? As opposed to phase reviews and gate reviews for product management, or writing a marketing plan, or dealing with SEO and SEM, which was all just not what I was good at. So when I was let go, it was freedom to think beyond that 25 years and what happened in life and professionally. But even within the last 2 years that I was there, I started to see, wait a second, how do I parlay this into what I want to be doing? And at that point, I started to develop that I want to be speaking to or writing to or communicating to an audience, not building the stuff that we're communicating about.
No, it's great stuff, Mike. You mentioned that, 5% of what we want to say, or 5% of what we have to say is what the audience needs to hear. One of the ways you said to figure out what 5% you want to communicate is by letting someone else step in and help. How do we identify the who we let to step in? And what if you disagree with them? I mean, like, how do you figure out, like, I think most entrepreneurs and business owners, they feel like, you cannot dwindle down their message to a couple of paragraphs. So how do you want to get out of your own way, but then to trust that other source so that you can take that feedback and really understand what it is that you need to convey?
Well, let's start with why you disagree with what somebody else tells you. It's fundamentally because you know the service you provide, what it entails, what you do, or you know the product you have to sell, you know the value you hold. And your inclination is to think, I have to tell them all about it. So of course you're going to think, if somebody distills it down to just a sentence or a paragraph, you're going to think, well, I mean, that's not all I do. And that's the challenge. You know everything. So you're always going to have a yeah, but, or other people do this, or there's always going to be opinions. But what it comes down to has more to do with the fact that a business thinks as a business and an audience thinks like a human. Whoever you're talking to thinks like a human. And it's so extreme that business develops its own way of thinking and talking about it. Even. So to give you an example here, every business starts with, what problem do I solve for my customers? So let's apply this to an investor looking for a property to invest in. There's going to be a lot of options, right? And they're going to be gravitated to the best value to them. But what if the best value of house 5 is there, they just don't hear about it and they pass over it because they missed it? Like a resume is a perfect mini example of this happening. The average time spent reading a resume is 5 to 7 seconds. That's it. So an employer spending that much time, that means they only see the first sentence. And more importantly, it's 100% subjective. They're not reading anything through a business lens. They're looking at it through, am I intrigued by the words this person wrote? If they are, they read further and put on their business hat. If not, you end up in the 5 to 7 second pile. Think through it yourself. Oh, this is interesting. Hat on, they start reading. Apply that to an investor looking at multiple investment properties. The one they're going to gravitate towards is the one where they see the most value. Isn't it important there for the seller who has that property for the investor to stand out and make sure they get the chance to tell that value and present that value the right way? And it really comes down to how people consume information, how they think about it versus how a business does. You start with, what problem do I solve? You go all the way down to building that service or product and the benefits of it. Of course, you want to go out and tell everybody about those services. Why wouldn't you? But the audience, that's not what they're thinking at the time. They're thinking, I need something. I'm motivated towards a need state. If they open up and see, if they put in, say, plumber, I need a plumber. They put in plumber, they're going to get 50 results in under a tenth of a second. And all they have to do is move the mouse back and forth and click. They have all the power and they're controlling the time. They're working in 5 to 7 second increments. So if everybody says, I'm a plumber, here's my phone number. I'm a plumber, here's my phone number. That's the first 3. Or like that. The 4th one says, water is where it shouldn't be. It escaped its system. That's bad. We'll be there in half an hour. Click here. That one is speaking to why you type in plumber. If it's a light bulb or a shingle, you'll wait till the weekend. But if water is leaking somewhere, that doesn't wait. Everything goes on hold. That's why you're typing in plumber. That plumber knows it. That plumber is going to be the one that stands out as different.
No, great insight.
And that's how
right
quick
there.
it is.
Yeah, great insight right there. Because to your point, understanding what someone's looking for, what are they searching for, why they're searching, what problem are they trying to solve? If you can get in front of that, as opposed to just simply stating, hey, we're a plumber like everyone else, that allows you to stand out. And you talked about first, best, and different. And I think that starts to get at that notion a little bit more. Maybe you can take us down that path a little bit more. First, best, different. Uh, just help us break that down a little bit more.
Sure. Well, the easiest way to think about it is first and best are really hard to come by.
Yeah.
But different we can all do. And it has nothing to do with I'm going to dress as a clown and dance on the corner with a street sign to be different. It has to do with the audience's perception. So if an audience is thinking in a certain order of information, but you're giving them the information in the wrong sequence, if they're looking for it in a certain order, but you're giving it to them in the wrong sequence, you miss a connection point. So here's how an audience thinks. First, you need to get my attention. You need to connect with me, right? That's that 5 to 7 second rule. And next, you need to get your challenge across, my challenge across. Yes, this is what you're going through, because then I know I'm in the right place. And then you need to offer me a solution to my problem. Simple architecture right there. The problem occurs when people start thinking about it as, here's my services, buy now. And they don't make that connection and bring them through the connect, challenge, solution piece first. The truth is the audience isn't yet ready for the services. They know they need something, but they're going to go with the one that feels right. It's how an audience, I don't care if it's B2B or B2C, that's how the audience does it. That's how they think. And an audience is thinking in a different order of information than you are. So the audience, the way I explain it is on an elevator. You get on an elevator with a member of the audience you want to talk to, and they say to you, what do you do? The elevator pitch. We've all heard of this, right? Your tendency is going to be either say literally what you do, I'm an accountant, or the dreaded I help phrase, which starts with I help and says everything you do, help company A going through problem B, achieve 10 seconds and everything, and I don't know what to pay attention to. Here's how that works, though. If you and I are on an elevator and you ask me what I do and I say I'm an accountant, you're only going to remember I met Mike the accountant. It doesn't matter what I say next. I may as well say, what do you do? That's it, because that's what our human minds are going to hold on to. But the idea is, how do you get the conversation going? How do you get your audience to say, tell me more on that first floor? Huh, that's interesting. What do you mean by that? That's the reaction you want, because then you can go up to the second floor, that challenge. And when they say, how do you help them? That's your third floor, the solution. How does it work? Fourth floor, 3-step process. What do they experience during that process? Fifth floor, services. And it keeps going up 8 floors to tell them the right message in the right order. Now, if you invert that elevator, so this is what just one-sided it sounds like. So what do you do? Oh, it's interesting. Tell me more about that. And how do you help them? How does that work? What services do they get? How are they better off? Can you prove it works? Do you have proof? Yeah, you know what? I'll take a meeting. I've just answered a sequence of questions that any human being would be thinking in, and I'm leading them question by question to where I want them to go. I don't say, I'm a mechanic, I fix your car. I say, I keep you on the road. I need to get their attention first. And then, what do you mean? I just start explaining in the right order. Challenge, solution, the process for arriving at that solution, the services aligned with those steps, how they're better off as benefits. Prove it as case studies, testimonials, your about me section. And last but not least, that call to action is the 8th floor. If people start to think like their audience is going to think and how their audience needs to receive information, what they're going to see is an audience thinks like a well-written FAQ page. It's like a funnel of information that starts with the most general question and goes to the most specific. And that's how our minds work. We don't jump around unless it's by accident. We go in order. What happens next? What happens next? What happens next? Go back to the 5-year-olds on the reading rug. All of us think that way.
Yeah, Mike.
So that's
great
what
information, man. Mike, I think what stands out to me is like there are times where, as marketers, we get into the strategy and the communication, and it feels like we're doing a lot of marketing things. And there's a lot of depth if you do this the right way. And I had a conversation with my sister not too long ago. She's a real estate agent and one of the top real estate agents in her area. And she had a client who was debating going with her or someone else. And, the quick conversation we had is like, well, listen, this person has sold X amount of houses in this area. So if you just want an agent, you can go with anybody. But if you want someone to find you a home in this neighborhood, this is the person you want to go with, right? So when you start thinking about how do you frame it up initially to draw interest and connect, and where do you really add value, you can't just go telling people you're an agent. You have to show them where you add value and how do you actually differentiate yourself from everybody else that's out there.
Right.
There are also people who probably are not at that level where they are either the best or they have something that's so unique and so compelling that they really stand out. How do they start to play with this so they can kind of carve out a lane for themselves?
Well, let's put it into practice, okay? Let's take a real estate agent, just like you said. That real estate agent ultimately relies on an elevator pitch every single conversation they have, right? Whether it's a local networking group like a BNI, or it's their message on a billboard or on a pamphlet or on a letter that they write to a homeowner. It's always, what are they going to say in those instances that makes them stand out from all of the other realtors who are all doing the same thing? And the first thing, go to a suburban place like a suburban area of Chicago, let's say, or, somewhere like that. What you're going to see is, I sold this many houses. I'm part of this select group. I'm blah, blah, blah. They're all just agents, right? But now think about the motivation for moving to that neighborhood or buying a house in the first place. Shouldn't a real estate agent's job be holding on to clients? Easier to hold on to one than it is to find 10 more, or whatever that ratio is. I can't even remember it at this point, but it's like, it's better to hold on. It's much more valuable to have this one client than it is to go find 10 new ones. Well, that's no different in home buying. And aren't you going to remember somebody who introduced you to, okay, I know where you're going and where you want to go next. Here's the place for you. And here's all of the services you're going to need. And hey, did you see this article? And what they're looking for is a relationship, not sell a house. They want to sell 2 houses. So how does that realtor position themselves to the buyer other than, I sold this many houses, just sold by so-and-so? Is, we're on a journey together from beginning of the search to when you leave. Your realtor should be like that anchor. That sounds a lot different than, I sold more houses or I'm part of the select group. With you in this relationship over the course of owning this home, even a valuable resource to you that doesn't stop at the closing. That sounds really, really different in people's minds, because they're not just seeing I just sold this listing. That's what every single realtor is doing. They're touting their own success. But what the home buyer is looking for is something more than that. That's not transactional in their mind. If it's a commercial investment, that's not transactional. The word investment says it's not transactional. It's long-term. So the buyer of or into that message is thinking very differently. It's not just, I need to buy a house. The realtor who pays attention to that impulse of their buyer, or that thinking, that thought process of their buyer, is the one who's going to look different.
Yeah.
So that's how I'd answer.
Mike. I love it, Mike. For our listeners here who are looking for something actionable, you talked about ways to rethink the framework of our conversations. What's a mistake or a challenge that you see most business owners making that is relatively easy to fix? What's something they can all kind of do right now to make a little bit of a difference in their business?
Well, this is an easy, aside from your services don't come first, you need to make that connection point. And many businesses are going to think, the way I show them the connection point is, you're in the right spot. Here's the solution. So if you let's use like a financial services firm, they're going to lead with, we'll take care of your money with our this, that, and this and that. That's how they think of connection. But that's not what the audience is thinking first. The audience is thinking, I'm not going to be making money at some point. At some point, I want to retire. At some point, I don't want to think about money. So wouldn't the connection point the connection point is not, we will take care of your money. Wouldn't it be in that case, we'll worry about your money so you don't have to? Because that's exactly what the audience is thinking at that point. So that's the biggest challenge okay, I'm telling them you're in the right place. Sometimes for them to understand that, you need to connect with that idea of why they're searching. So the easiest thing in the world to do is not just say you're in the right place. It's, here's what you've been looking for. This is you. Solution is you're in the right place.
I love it, man. That's powerful stuff right there. Here's what you've been looking for. If you can understand that and solve that problem for that consumer, you've now set yourself up to stand out and be different. So really great insights right there, Mike. Mike, just talk to me a little bit more about the people you help, right? You've got Verret and Associates. Who are some of the clients that you work with today? What kind of business owners are you working with?
Well, I guess the benefit of what I do, the nature of what I do is that it applies to any kind of business, meaning there's not I've worked with improv troupes to cannabis companies to ADP and Liberty Mutual. It sort of runs the gamut. But the big area that I focus on is small businesses and down, meaning they don't have departments to worry about stuff. They're not hiring a bunch of agencies to deal with things for them. The C-suite is the owner or the two owners. They have to think about everything. And if you go back to that idea of they know everything, how do they find the 5%? Well, now you're worrying about everything. So working with those businesses is the biggest help to them. And I can do it quickly. In 2 weeks, we get to what that one message, and then they go to work applying it, and I work with them to do that. So small businesses, entrepreneurs, even solopreneurs who are branching out into this crazy world, those are the people that I help because they're the ones who they have the most going on. It's the foggiest. And I'm telling you, if it's somebody else's business and they were to look at it, they'd see it clear as day. But when it's yours, it's a whole different ballgame. You don't see it because you're thinking of everything. So small businesses and entrepreneurs who are trying to get a new idea off the ground, that's where I love to play.
I mean, getting that perspective from someone else is so key. And you talked about it. If you can find that 5%, that could have a big impact on your business. So if you want to connect with Mike, you can check him on LinkedIn. Mike Verrett's his handle, and then go to his website, verretandassociates.com. Give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
I would definitely have to say it was trial and error in my time at Hasbro learning about business, simply because it was 90% stuff I had no interest in doing. And I had to sort of find a way to survive to get to where I ended up. So that would be an easy low-hanging fruit one for me.
All right, give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
LinkedIn is always going to be the first one that I recommend, simply because it's social media, but for networking. People go there for one reason. And if you're B2B, you should be using that as a weapon. Because people go to Facebook, Instagram for a million reasons. They go to LinkedIn for one. The other one is any calendar system. Calendly is the one I use, but any calendar system is a remarkable tool because I'm able to, in just the questions when somebody schedules time with me, it's totally automated. I have a welcome message. I can ask them questions so I know how they came to me, what their website is, what they want to talk about going into it, and it sends a message afterwards and reminders. Unbelievable tool for business, especially for people disorganized like myself.
Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
Oh man, I gotta be honest. I'm I'm not a big reader. However, the one book that I can't even remember the title, Damon John's book. That is the last one I recommended. Damon John you know him from Shark Tank. But the way he got his start is what his book is about. He was the founder of the clothing line FUBU. And how he went from the inside of do-rags are becoming popular with his audience to selling them out of his car and coming up with the name For Us, By Us, and how he grew that was so organic and insight-driven and opportunity-driven. I just found his story fascinating. And what he's like today is so different from where he started out in a lot of ways, but what drives him hasn't changed. So that I apologize, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but that is absolutely the one.
We'll link to that in our show notes for sure.
Okay.
I think it's called Rise and Grind or something like that.
Yes, thank you. Gosh, yeah. I'm batting my brain around trying to remember. Yes.
Yeah. What's a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals?
This one sounds ridiculous. Every morning at about 5:30, my dog wakes me up and we get in the car, get coffee. He gets a few donut holes from Dunkin' Donuts and we go to the beach. And every day, it's about a half-hour drive from where I am, and I read the news. Maybe I'll check my email, but usually just relax. He'll run around on the beach a bit, and then we come home and I'm ready to start my day. And without that, I think I'd lose my mind. Because my mind jumps into action. When I say he wakes me up at 5:30, I'm behind the wheel of the car at 5:35. Like my mind pops on and doesn't slow down until the end of the day. This is the only way I can get it to slow down is driving, forcing myself to just go somewhere that has nothing to do with work, don't really interact with work. Then I can come back and my mind's at the right tempo.
We talked a lot about, connecting with an audience, but I want to distill it down to one thing. So what's your number one insight for connecting and engaging with an audience?
The number one insight is understanding that they need to be led to the purpose that your business represents to you. You need to lead them to the importance of your services and what you can do for them. And without that, you're just going to be another listing in the yellow pages or on Google as a result.
There you go. Mike, let's lighten it up. You talked about getting to the beach and on your 5:30 a.m. Drives out there to Dunkin' Donuts. But what's your favorite place to grab a bite in your hometown?
In my hometown, it's a place called the Charlestown Grill. And I'm cheating. It's 2 towns away, but it's Rhode Island. Everything's really just one hometown.
There you go.
Coastal place, outdoor seating, for whatever reason, never crowded, and best damn lobster roll I know of around here.
There you go.
Feels like summer going there.
Well, hey, excellent choice right there. I don't think I've been to Rhode Island, so we've got to maybe see if I can get that on the road trip list one day here. Get up to
just know once you get here, everything is no more than 30 minutes away from each other.
Yeah. There you go. Excellent. Well, listen, Mike, great insights, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show. For us, I think the biggest takeaway is really understanding your audience and understanding what they need. And as you talked about, you have to understand kind of what they're looking for and what services you offer, not so much that you offer, but the why behind those services and why your company even exists, so that you can set them up in a position to actually listen and hear what it is you're trying to say. I think so often business owners are trying to just tell you what they do and how much they do it and what services we offer without really connecting with that audience and understanding what is it that they actually need. And if you can do that, that can open up some ideas and get you flowing. If you want to connect with Mike and learn more about what he's able to do to help you with your business, check out his website, verretandassociates.com, or you can connect with them on LinkedIn. Mike, I want to thank you again for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope you have a great day.
John, you too. I never say no to a microphone, and especially, anybody who's crazy enough to give me the opportunity. God bless. Thank you. I appreciate it.
From one advertising guy to another, man. Take care.